Welcome back. As a faith walking coach, we want to encourage you to develop the skill of empowering the coachee. Often in coaching, we're tempted, as we've mentioned before, to try to fix the coachee. We're tempted to do the work for them. We're so excited about our own growth that we want them to have a similar experience. And so we end up doing more than we should. In this session, we're going to talk about empowering. An effective coach will empower the people that she or he coaches. Let's look at what those skills are. Notice this definition. To empower means to equip with an ability, to enable someone, to give power to someone, to give authority to them and invest them with power. That's what empowerment means. We believe, again, you've heard me say this and we'll say it over and over, that the answer lies within the person. And what we do as coaches is we assist them in discovering for themselves what they need to know and what they need to do. One main goal is to help the coachee to take responsibility for themselves and to look within themselves for the answers. In faith walking, we empower them rather than over-functioning for them. Everything you need is already inside. Just do it. That's the Nike slogan, but it's also what we believe is true about the coachees. So what we do as a coach is we assist them as they solve their own issues and as they take responsibility for their own transformation. Empower them. Give them the power to change their own lives. Our role as a coach, you'll remember, is to think with them so that eventually they can learn to coach themselves. That's really the goal. To get to the place where every day I'm thinking about the principles, I'm thinking about my own transformation, and I'm learning to coach myself. That's what you want for your coachee. Help them to develop a clear vision of a preferred future for their lives. Ask the coachee to think about what they hope for themselves and then wonder with them about possibilities. Asking a question like, who do you want to be in the world or in this relationship or in this role is often helpful. And then help them to become the me that they want to be. The goal for you, for me, for our coachees is to be the me that we choose to be. And so we coach so that the coachee becomes the person that he or she chooses to be. The difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do. And so we coach them to get into action, to practice the principles, because that's a key to growth and to transformation. Give your coachees permission to be curious. What in the world does that mean? Well, here's what I mean by that. Help them to learn the skill of self-discovery. Help them to develop a really healthy curiosity about who they are and why they are the way they are. Teach them to ask themselves questions and be curious about, well, what's that about? Where does that come from? Why is it that you keep getting stopped there? And the more curious they become, the more they then will learn how to coach themselves. And so again, we help them to take responsibility for themselves. We help them to assume responsibility for his or her own transformation. I believe that each of us is responsible for our own self-esteem. And so we help the coachee to take responsibility for their own sense of self-worth. We get the focus off of others and what they might be doing. And we get the focus back on us and what we're doing and how we're behaving. And we ask that question, what's my role in keeping this problem in place? You ask that question of your coachee. What's your role, do you think, in keeping the problem in place? And help them stay there until they can come up with an answer. Don't rush them, and don't expect them to change at a certain pace or in a certain way. Empower the coachee to take charge of their own journey of transformation. You'll remember back to our session on asking good questions, that we always leave the initiative, we leave the decision with the coachee. We simply ask them, would you consider? Or have you considered? Or would you be willing to? Because they are in charge. And so we empower them to take responsibility for their own lives. Don't rush things that need time to grow. Often, we need to give people the time and the space that they need to grow. And I'm going to remind you again, don't try to fix them. Give up your need to fix them. Give up your need to be his or her savior. I want to tell you, it feels good when we help someone. It feels good when someone gets fixed or when someone has an aha moment during our coaching. But I really want to encourage you to give up your need to feel good about your great advice. Love them well, and love them well while they learn to fix themselves. One way to get at that is to remind yourself never to work harder than they are working. Working harder than your coachee is working on that coachee's own transformation is overfunctioning. So I want to encourage you to stop and evaluate your coaching periodically and ask yourself, am I working harder on this than they're working? And if you are, quit it. Just stop it and say, okay, we're going to pause here and I'm going to wait for you to catch up. In Faith Walking Coaching, we want to empower others. We want the coachees to take responsibility for their own transformation and growth. I remind you, and I'm going to remind you in each of these sessions, that practice makes permanent. Practice helping others take responsibility for themselves this week. I want to invite you to be intentional and to think of ways where you can help a person to take responsibility for themselves rather than you overfunctioning or you fixing it or you giving them advice. Help them to discover for themselves. Practice this at home with your spouse or your children. Practice it with your friends and your workmates, because practice will make you a better coach. And we want you to be a great faith walking coach. I want to thank you for joining us for this session and for becoming an effective faith walking coach. In our next session, we're going to talk about how to challenge people without judging or shaming them. I hope you'll join us, and I look forward to seeing you.